About a minute to join, and then I'll introduce you and hand it off.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'll be right back. Sierra, you have control for now. Just monitor the chat for me. I'll be right back. All right. Sorry about that, y'all. I'm back. I just did words. Distribute the recording later if you're ready.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I think some people are caught up. We had one or have one presenter that's going a bit late. I think that's where people are. But I was saying we can go ahead and get started, and people will start coming in, and then if we can start distributing the recording later as well. I think either way it would be
I'm
soon.
okay waiting a few minutes if we have to.
Oh, let's see. What time is it now? I mean, I want to be respectful of your time. We're almost 10 minutes into it, so we can go and get started if you're okay with that.
Yeah, if you think that's best, that's fine with me.
All right, yeah, let's go with that. People are starting to come in as well. Uh, so hello everyone. Thank you for coming to this talk. Today it will be given by TikTok's security counsel, Dondi West. And with that, I'll hand it off to you, sir.
Hey, James, thank you so much for that. Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Dondi West. I am Information Security Counsel at TikTok. And, I'll talk a little bit more about my path and my career journey in a second. But it's really good to be here again at the Blacks in Cybersecurity Winter Conference. This is my this is my second time speaking at this conference. The first time I spoke about a lack of diversity in the cybersecurity workforce being a national security vulnerability. This time, I'm going to dig a little bit deeper on that topic and talk about how it could actually be tracked as a security control. Before I go any further, let me give two quick disclaimers. First, the things that we'll talk about today and the things that I expressed are my views and my views only. It does not necessarily represent the views or the position of TikTok or any of my past employers. Secondly, while I am an attorney, this presentation should be taken as for informational and educational purposes only, and should not be relied upon as legal advice. So to the extent that I may mention something that's legal related, be sure to check with your own counsel. So with that said, let's get back to talk a little bit more about me. I'm originally from, if you hear a Southern accent, I'm originally from Selma, Alabama, which is well known as the ground zero of the civil rights movement. About my background, my career in cybersecurity sort of started while I was a mathematics major at Alabama A&M University, which is an HBCU. And while there, I was a math major, and I was recruited into this special Navy program called the Information Warfare Officer Program. And so I basically, once I graduated from Alabama A&M, I went into the Navy, where I became a cryptology or an information warfare officer. And I essentially spent my whole career in the Navy working within the intelligence community and the Department of Defense. And even after leaving the Navy, I worked as a cleared defense contractor at organizations like JFCC-NW, which stands for the Joint Functional Component Command for Network Warfare. That organization was a predecessor to what we now know to be U.S. Cyber Command. But even after U.S. Cyber Command formally stood up, I continued to support them as a cleared defense contractor. And I've also did some work at the Office of the Director of National Intelligence in the National Intelligence Manager for Cyber's office during the Obama administration. Some of my private sector experience includes working as a senior cyber threat intelligence analyst at PricewaterhouseCoopers, as well as a cybersecurity attorney at Microsoft. At TikTok, I currently serve as Information Security Counsel, where, I basically represent all of our sort of like cybersecurity leaders. And I touch issues ranging from incident response to, cybersecurity terms within procurement contracts to data governance, privacy issues. And I also monitor to ensure that like all TikTok, as well as ByteDance, which is our parent company, make sure that all of our products and services are compliant with global cybersecurity laws. So that's basically about me. And just so everybody know, I'll be watching the Q&A chat. And if I see something, I'll try to be interactive. So feel free to not hold questions to the end and post any questions, comments, or feedback within the chat. All right, so with that, so what are we going to talk about today? I mainly want to touch on 5 points. The first is, the overarching theme of my talk today is the fact that for anyone who is not, we need to start viewing diversity, equity, and inclusion through the lens of being a cybersecurity professional. So here are 5 key takeaways. The first is that a lack of diversity in a company's cybersecurity or organization's cybersecurity workforce can be viewed as a vulnerability. Second, inclusive teams are high-performing teams. Third, once we realize those 2 issues, a natural sort of logical conclusion is that diversity and inclusion can improve enterprise security. Diversity and inclusion can prevent catastrophic failures, and it should be viewed as a security domain. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. So a few statistics, to talk about where we stand as a cybersecurity community when it comes to our diversity. And quite frankly, we're not doing very well at all. 9% of cybersecurity professionals are African-American, 4% are Hispanic, 24% are women, and yet we have 500,000 open jobs according to a recent study. So the natural, inference from this is that diversity is an area that we can really lean in and help fill some of these like 500,000 cybersecurity jobs. And as many of you know, when cybersecurity professionals are portrayed in movies, on TV, those characters are never diverse characters. And so I think that marketing materials, entertainment, and other platforms, I think that they do a poor job of showing what a cybersecurity professional really looks like. But and so those are the statistics. We all know about them, but what does that mean in terms of, how does that impact enterprise security. So in the top right-hand corner, you'll see a little small Venn diagram that talks about threat, risk, and vulnerability. And so taking this back to cybersecurity 101, we understand that the threat is usually the agent or the threat actor that looks to exploit a vulnerability. So in this instance, when we look at these numbers, we can see that a lack of a diverse workforce leads to a number of issues that weaken the security of organizations. And so this all, when you look at the lack of diversity as a vulnerability, you could then easily see that it poses risk and it impacts enterprise risk. And we'll dig a little bit more into that now. So the important thing to know is that inclusive teams are in fact high performing teams. And I'll give a few statistics that have been taken from various studies. First of all, inclusive teams outperform 60% of their peers or their competitors. A high sense of belonging actually increases job performance by 50%, 56%. It reduces turnover by 50%. And a sense of belonging also reduces sick days. 83% of millennials are more actively engaged in diverse and inclusive environments, 83%. And then also cognitive diversity, which is also known as neurodiversity, which essentially gets at diversity in the way people think, the way people's brains work. A good example of neurodiversity is having a person that's on the autism spectrum in the room, for example. They may think and approach problems differently than so-called neurotypical individuals. Cognitive diversity or neurodiversity enhances innovation by 20% or more. So as our cybersecurity professionals, we can already be seeing how a more diverse and inclusive cybersecurity team leads to a more high-performance cybersecurity team, which ultimately reduces enterprise risk. And so the question that we should all be asking is, if a more diverse and inclusive cybersecurity workforce in an organization, if that substantially increases performance, then it follows that it raises the level of enterprise security, it reduces the level of risk. And so therefore, if inclusion and diversity can help basically leapfrog the performance of cybersecurity teams, then naturally we can see that it has to be looked at just like it's a normal security control or security domain. And so why is this the case? And so this is when I think about diversity and inclusion, it's important to understand that everyone has a different viewpoint. And so clearly everyone is looking at an elephant, they're touching an elephant, but because they're blindfolded in this picture, they all have different views, different perspectives. So everyone is talking about what they're seeing from their perspectives. So imagine if you only had the guy in the middle who's saying it's a wall, but everyone had his same viewpoint, then everyone would conclude that it's a wall. But, and so you have a diversity of viewpoints, but putting all those together is what really gives you the big picture. In fact, this is an elephant, but everybody has their own viewpoint. And so that's what I think about when I think about a diverse and inclusive cybersecurity team coming together, working together. That is what I think about. Everyone has a different perspective and viewpoint, and that viewpoint is valuable. So the point I want to make here is that diversity and inclusion in a company's cybersecurity workforce improves enterprise security. And so I want to point out, several different areas across the bottom of the screen that immediately come to mind for me when I think about how does diversity and inclusion improve cybersecurity. The first is threat hunting. And going back to the picture of the elephant that I just showed, imagine if all threat hunters, were just alike, use the same set of tools, use the same set of research techniques. They would be unlikely to spot adversaries. So it's right there, when we think about data points like during an incident, the average dwell time, which is the average time that a threat actor is within your network before you discover it. If you have a lack of diversity in your threat hunting team, and they are therefore lower performing, then that can very well increase the average dwell time of an adversary being in your network. The second thing is incident response. Like some of the biggest, most costly incidents, the ones that, hit the front page of mainstream media outlets, you know, a lot of the times during an incident, you look back in hindsight and see that very poor but very costly decisions were made. And many of the times when those poor decisions and big mistakes are made during incident response or doing just, strategic decision making in general, sometimes those poor decisions can be tied to a lack of diversity. So we have essentially a situation where a lack of diversity and inclusion in a cybersecurity workforce could actually lead to catastrophic outcomes when it comes to like incident response, as well as decision making regarding how do you expend resources, decision making when it comes to this, the overall strategy of addressing, an ever-changing, ever-evolving cybersecurity threat. Think about your red teamers who try to probe your own network to try to find flaws, deficiencies, and vulnerabilities. What if everybody had the same toolbox, the same mindset, the same techniques? All of a sudden your red team becomes poor. When we see companies that commit gaffes and they do something that's not very inclusive, one of the questions that we always ask is, they could not have had you may make a comment like they could not have possibly had, a woman in the room or a Black person in the room. And usually that is in fact true. And yet companies commit it time and time again. And then you think about like your overall risk management strategy. When a company thinks about risk and they want to make risk-based decisions, when the relevant subject matter experts are coming together in a room, it helps reduce cognitive biases and other issues that lead to catastrophic failures or mistakes. When you have a diverse set of minds in a room, you make better risk-based decisions. So, in fact, it is easy to arrive to the point that diversity and inclusion improves enterprise cybersecurity. And as cybersecurity professionals, we have to start looking at it that way, and we have to start justifying, hiring strategy and things like that in a way that addresses this from the lens of being cybersecurity practitioners. Okay, so essentially, I'm gonna wrap this up by saying, this is a call to action. And in an ideal world, what I would like to see is like imagine a cybersecurity domain or a cybersecurity industry where NIST cybersecurity standards have elements of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and specify diversity, equity, and inclusion as a security control category, where in order to pass certain standards or to look at your organization's cybersecurity posture appropriately, that organization's level of inclusion, diversity, equity, and inclusion should be considered. Organizations like IST 2 Square, I do hold the CISSP certification, but imagine if before granting the CISSP certification, individuals had to understand and be able to map the value of diversity, equity, and inclusion to enterprise security or security in an organization. Looking at ISO as an organization, you have ISO cybersecurity frameworks like ISO 27001. Imagine if a control category could be diversity and inclusion. But there are some things that we could be doing right now. And the last two categories talk about things we can be doing now. For example, if your organization has a third-party risk management function, which means that I see your question, Jay Hoffman, I see your question, and I'll come back to that. So third-party risk management, when you're looking at the security level of your vendors, we should be inquiring about like, where are you when it comes up to diversity, equity, and inclusion? And then last but not least, like your recruiting strategy for your security workforce. Think about diversity, understand that it actually can improve enterprise risk security. So with that said, I'll now turn to any questions and answers that we have. I see that we have one from Jay Hoffman, and I'll read it. Can you give us a real world example of when an incident was responded to poorly because of the lack of diversity on the IR team, executive leadership, et cetera? So I think about if you read about the well-known Equifax breach and some of the strategic mistakes that was made in that breach, There are some articles out there that point to some of those being the result of a lack of diversity in thought. I don't think it broke down to categories of race and gender, but there was a lack of diversity in thought, and that goes back to where I talk about cognitive or neurodiversity. So diversity is always not about race and gender. It could be about career backgrounds. For example, you know, if you have military people in the room or former government workers in the room, the way they think and what they bring to the table might be different from someone from private industry. So when we talk about a cybersecurity workforce having diversity and then improving overall enterprise security or the level of security or the risk posture of an organization, we're talking about all types of diversity. So that's where that comes from. That's actually a good question. And I also expand on that a little bit because this is why I'm raising this issue, because when I talk about organizations like NIST taking this on, by the time we get to the point where those type of standards are out there, you know, a lot of what I'm suggesting would need to be verified. That's why I'm calling on like an organization like NIST to take this up further, to actually test those standards. Like, how do you grade the diversity of a company's cybersecurity workforce? So that's like the type of research that I want to see occurring before these type of things are put in place, so that some of the things I'm speaking about now can in fact be validated and put into standards. All right, I'm looking for any more questions. Happy to engage.
If you have a question, please put it in the chat or the Q&A section. We want you guys to definitely take advantage of this very unique opportunity. Looks like we got one more.
Okay, so we have, would you suggest additional controls added to AT and PS families for DEI? Just to be clear, can you, Mr. or Mrs. Hoffman, can you tell me what you mean by AT and PS? I'm assuming PS is physical security, but I just want to make sure I'm talking about what you're talking about. Awareness and trainings. And PS is what? Personal security families. I'm not sure, to be honest. I would say definitely, you know, I think training and awareness would be an excellent sort of like cross-functional partner in what I'm moving out on. But what I am in fact suggesting is that they deserve their own control category, in my opinion. So not elements that would operate within a existing control category, but its own unique category. And so, and the reason why that's important is because like it's going back to like, well, what types of diversity, what types of inclusion drive improvements in enterprise risk? That's why I would want it to have its own control category, because all of the different elements would be used to score that unique control category, just like other categories are scored when doing any type of security framework assessment. So I would want that fully built out. I wouldn't just want it to be like one check in the box or a couple of elements of an already existing control. Ideally, it would be its own control with many elements that help understand how an organization is doing when it comes to being diverse and inclusive. So I have on the screen my TikTok account as well as my Twitter account. Feel free to follow me. Also, if anyone needs like any career advice or want to connect with me like on a professional level, I'm also on LinkedIn, and I'm really good about responding to LinkedIn inboxes. And if it's people I can connect you to, if it's job opportunities I can connect you to, if it's career advice that I can help with, or anything that I can do to support you in your journey in cybersecurity, please do not hesitate to reach out to me via LinkedIn. I'm very good about responding to that. And also, I would be remiss if I did not say that TikTok is hiring in the security space. So if you are interested in security positions at TikTok, please reach out to me as well. We're hiring for all types of security professionals, ranging from compliance to red teaming to security engineering to threat intelligence. And in particular, like right now, we're working on this project that's known as Project Texas, where we're building out a complete security domain and infrastructure to protect American user data. And so we're looking for professionals that can really help us lean in and, you know, help protect our over 1 billion active users. So with that said, I'll go ahead and give it maybe another minute for any other further questions. And then if I don't get any further questions, we can go ahead and sign off. And I hope that you all will stay in touch with me. Okay.
Yeah, while we see if anyone has any last minute questions, I want to say thank you on behalf of everyone in the audience and on behalf of PIC. Again, guys, this is a really, really unique opportunity, and we're so glad you take time out of your busy schedule to come speak with us and help us learn and grow as a group.
Okay. And I see one more question from a friend, quickly becoming my friend, Jay Hoffman. In your opinion, how important is mentorship in DEI? I think it's very important. When you have people who, you know, it's important in two ways. It's important to have a mentor that may come from a similar background as you, who may understand your perspective, who may have walked in your shoes and had to overcome different obstacles that you have to overcome. But I also think it's important to have mentors who might have a different background, who, when you need advice, they can give you a different perspective because they come from a different walk of life. So I don't believe in like having like one single mentor. At a minimum, I think that people should have a mentor that helps them with like where you want to go, where you want to be. I think that we should also have peer mentors where for like common everyday issues, like you could talk to your peers. And then obviously, no matter where you are in your career in cybersecurity, you can also be mentoring someone. Even if you are new to cybersecurity, you should still be mentoring someone who's interested in getting their foot in the door. Because there's so many people that don't know like where to start. Like, hey, I'm interested in cybersecurity, but where do I even start? So, and yes, I am a mentor and I'm really good about it. So please feel free to reach out, especially via LinkedIn. So yeah, so I think that we should all have 3 levels of mentors, but also specifically look for both mentors who share a similar background, but also mentors who come from different backgrounds who can give you different perspectives. All right. Well, thank everybody so much for having me. Please feel free to connect, and also feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. I'm gonna go ahead and sign off. Thanks everybody again. Thanks, James, for helping to moderate this.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, everyone. Hope you check out our other talks.
Yep.
Bye, everybody.